Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me tell you about the only supplements that I use. For nearly 10 years, Bare Performance Nutrition has been on a mission to educate, inspire, and improve the performance of modern-day athletes, adventurers, and warriors through training, nutrition, and supplementation. With effective formulas that work as hard as you do and are third-party tested for prohibited substances, you can get results and reach your full potential with Bare Performance Nutrition. Head to the link in the show notes to go to the website to help me out and to help you out so that we can go one more together. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 75. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest down in the sacred valley of Peru, Brother B. Brother, how you doing?
I am feeling so grateful to be having this conversation with you. And it's just an honor to be able to share some stories, share some wisdom that was gained from the stories, and trust that it will resonate with those who feel called to listen.
I know it will resonate. And I am so excited for this conversation for many reasons. But the first time we connected over Zoom, you were sitting out in this field with the bluest sky behind you and these big white clouds, and your voice just put me at ease. And it was the best 30 minutes of that week. And so I know that this 60 minutes is going to really resonate and touch many people listening. And I would love for you to just start off by introducing yourself.
Introducing myself, that's always a funny question, right? Because I find myself and all of us to be so many things, right? Some people know me as a filmmaker. Some people know me as a content strategist, content creator. Some people know me as a poet. And other people know me as just a coach who's here to help guide them in remembering who they are. Though at the end of the day, the one that resonates with me the most is I'm a brother. I'm family. Reminding people when I introduce myself as Brother B, it's reminding people that you're in the presence of someone you can trust, someone you can open up to, someone you can lean on for support, and just someone who's here to love you unconditionally, just the way you are.
Mm.
So that's who Brother B is.
So when did Brother B start for you? When was the first time that you decided I'm going to go by Brother B?
Hmm. Yeah, it was fascinating. It was in the middle of the pandemic, at the beginning of it, actually. And I had this very intense dream one night where I was in the presence of some people that I really admire, such as Lewis Howes and, the spoken word artist known as NQ. And in this dream, I had this yearning to share with them my poetry, and I couldn't. And it felt like someone had punched my teeth into my gums, and it was really, really painful. And I couldn't speak, I couldn't share. That I woke up in the middle of the night and I still felt this pain in my mouth, and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I immediately grabbed my journal and I just started writing down everything I could remember from this dream, knowing that it will serve me years later. And, after I finished that journal entry, the sun is about to come up, and I just get guided to take a walk outside, catch the sunrise by the lake. I was, in quarantine at my dad's house in northern Jersey. And as I'm walking to the lake, I just continue to hear the name Brother B repeat itself in my mind. Brother B, Brother B, Brother B. And I'm like, is that me? And it was just a full body yes. And ever since then, I just felt called to just go by Brother B, because I was looking at the world and seeing people kill each other for toilet paper and for all these things that we as a collective need to survive. And I just felt this calling. I was like, okay, It's on my soul to walk in this life as Brother B, to remind people that regardless of circumstances, like we're all family. At the end of the day, we got to look out for each other, you know?
Yeah, that's a message that the world needs now more than ever. And one of the other things in your introduction that stood out to me was use the phrase that you help people remember who they are. I think a lot of people are trying to find who they are. They're searching for that person that they feel like they haven't come in contact with yet, right? They are not yet that person. However, the phrase remembering who you are makes it sound like we've always had that person inside of us. Is that how you see it?
1,000%. I'm sure many people have seen the movie Lion King and remember when Simba completely forgot who his father was or who his father is and where he comes from and who he is within that. And Rafiki, he goes, he takes him to the water and reminds him of who he is. And I feel deep resonance with that character as well, because yeah, you know, I spent years, suppressing my authentic expression first and foremost. And then later in my adulthood, I'm like searching for my purpose. Who am I? What am I here to do? And I found myself searching for things based off of what would appease my parents, what would gain the approval of the people around me. And it ended up leading me to a place where I wasn't actually embodying and living the life that was authentic to me. And, I am someone who's also worked with plant medicine for nearly a decade now. And what this earth has provided us has helped me in remembering, like, wait a minute, I knew who I was, what I came here to do the moment I was born, and then there's just all these layers that were put on top of me that through my meditation, through my contemplative writing, through my practice of prayer, even movement, right, has helped me unlock and peel off these layers to remember who I am at the core of my being. And that's why I truly do believe it's not about, searching for who we are, or, searching for our purpose. It's about remembering what's in our heart, remembering what's in our soul, and tapping into that and being moved by that.
Got such a way with words, man. And I am proud to know that you at one point in time were living in the great state of New Jersey, a place that I am very familiar with. However, you're now in Peru, a place that I am very unfamiliar with. Tell us about how you got from New Jersey to Peru.
Brother, the first time I got the calling to come to Peru, it was actually when I was introduced to the magic of this land, the wisdom that it carries, and also the medicine that it offers, one of them being grandmother ayahuasca. And the moment I was introduced to this 10 years ago, instantly, again, that inner knowing, it was like clear. One day, somehow, some way, I will be in Peru and I will sit with this medicine. Remained open, and then the opportunity finally presented itself at the end of 2020. Waited a year for my opportunity to come out, and when it was finally time to come out, it was very uncertain. It was very scary. I only had $150 to my name. I'm like, yo, God, you calling me to Peru, though, where are all of these other things that I think I need to like live a good life? And it was ultimately an invitation to take a leap of faith and to strengthen the faith that I already have. And, it's been a year now that I've been here in the Valley, and what I thought was going to be just a 3-month winter getaway is transformed into what's now has me here setting roots down, really grounding myself in this land, and just being a bridge for the people that feel called to come explore what this place offers.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And when we first connected and you told me about your journey to Peru, you actually came twice and got sent back the first time. I would love for you to tell that part of the story.
Yeah, brother. So, like I said, November 17th, I got my flight booked, which was gifted to me, by the way. And here I am. I got $150 in my pocket. Don't know how things are going to work out. All I know is that this is something I'm being called to do internally. And so 2 days before my flight, I just so happened to find out that in order to enter the country of Peru, your passport needs to be valid for a minimum of 6 months without it expiring. And I rushed to look at my passport and I look and it has 5 months left on it. And so I start doing some research and I find one article where someone shared their experience and was like, yeah, they let us through even though my passport was only valid for 5 months. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty synchronistic. And then I read another article that was like, yeah, no, they didn't let us in. And so, me being a man of faith that I am, I'm like, I'm going to get on that flight and maybe I could sweet talk the lady at migrations with this voice of mine and she'll let me through. Is that what happened? Not at all. What ended up happening was she's like, you need to get on the next flight to Miami because you're not allowed in here. And I'm like, okay. And I'm grateful to say that the way I handled that situation was very mindfully. I did not allow the external circumstances to disrupt my peace. I remained in a space of prayer and meditation and just trusting. I'm like, I know that the Great Spirit is orchestrating perfection in my life right now, even though I do not understand. And what ended up happening was a week after me being back in the States, renewing my passport, I get a random call from unemployment and they're like, hey, we want to bless you with like $20,000. And I'm like, what? Okay. Because if I did manage to get into the country of Peru, I would have never received that money because I needed to be in the States to receive that money. And so once I received that money, I was able to upgrade some of my wardrobe, my laptop, and come to Peru with everything that I needed and more. And I'll say this too, that when I received that money, you know, I was honestly in tears. I like called one of my best friends. I'm like, yo, this just happened to me. And the first thing that came through was like, this is your reward for being of service for all these years. And it was just so humbling because, again, I'm being called to step into the unknown. My mind is attempting to rationalize what I think I need to make it through. And it's like sometimes being human, we forget that everything is happening in perfect time, in perfect order. And all we need to do is simply allow it to unfold.
Man, there's not much to add there, but it is so beautiful to hear about how a seemingly unfortunate circumstance actually was very fortunate. And the way you handled it, hopefully, gives somebody else listening a picture of thoughtful response rather than uh, quick reaction. I think too often we react to life rather than thoughtfully respond. And it sounds like this is a skill that you've harnessed over time. And I'm just curious where that came from in your life. Have you always been like this? Or is this something is this something that you've been working on for a while?
100%. I mean, as soon as you're bringing this up, like I could flashback and see myself driving on the highway in Jersey, getting cut off by other drivers and flipping them off and like freaking out. And also, like when things don't go my way, me so quick to blame someone else instead of taking radical responsibility. And honestly, what's gotten me to this point has been my mindfulness practice, really taking the time out of my day to turn within, see how I'm feeling, see what is it that I need that I can provide for myself. Seeing, okay, so this didn't turn out the way that I wanted. How can I take responsibility for this? Because if I can take responsibility for being in this, what appears to be a hole that I'm in, I can also dig myself out of it. And the practice of meditation and mindfulness training has really allowed me to just create a little bit of space between the stimuli and then either the reaction or the action that is to be taken after that. And so I'm truly, truly grateful because if it wasn't for this mindfulness journey, like I can't even imagine how I would have reacted to situations where it was very clear that my response is what served me the most in that moment.
So let me say this. I think New Jersey might be the only state where you can be doing 80 miles per hour in the left lane and somebody will pass you going 95 and give you a dirty look because you were going too slow. So I can relate. And you made me think of a Viktor Frankl quote, actually, one of my favorites. And he said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Mm-hmm. Snaps go all around for that quote because that's a universal truth right there, and many people, myself included, have been on this journey of like wanting to create content and show up online and live a life of freedom where I can travel and work wherever I want in the world. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's true, you can create your reality, we can create our reality, though that requires us to make conscious choices as individuals and not allow external circumstances, external environments, external people and influences to dictate the choices that we make. We can take it in, we can reflect on it, meditate on it, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that's making the choice.
Radical responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Brian, the first question that I usually ask people to really dig into the conversation is, what is the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle in your life? So, a circumstance that you didn't get to choose for yourself, but you got to choose your response. What was that for you?
It's fascinating because there's like a number of events that come with a similar theme. And it's this theme of like, okay, Brother B, you're being asked to step into the unknown. You're being asked to stretch yourself, and it's requiring you to take a leap of faith. And this has happened a number of times where in 2016, I moved away from home for the very first time, moved to California to go to film school. I didn't have a job, I didn't have a place to stay, and it was just full trust. It was like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I need to choose wisely here, right? Same thing, 2019, right? I end up getting called to go to California again. Similar circumstance where I didn't have a place to stay. I had one coaching client at the time that was supporting me and my best friend, where we ended up pretty much being homeless in California, and it was like in this moment, okay, I could react and say, no, 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 dude, I can't do this. We need to go back to our safe zone. We need to go back home. But it was like, no, like there's a calling on our soul right now. And it required me to really just tap into my faith, tap into my trust, tap into my own belief that relationship currency is more valuable than any monetary currency that you can place in my hand or in my bank account. And it was challenging because it's like I have my family looking at me making these choices, who, of course, my parents, my family, they only want the best for me. Though at the same time, it's like I'm being called to show up a certain way, regardless of the fact that the people around me don't agree, regardless of the fact that the people around me are criticizing my choices, judging my choices. That's been the hardest challenge for me. It's how do I deal with how other people feel with how I'm choosing to live my life.
There's a quote that I came across recently. I don't know who the author is, but it goes, "It's better to walk alone than with a crowd going in the wrong direction." And it's very simple. And I think our lives are more nuanced than that. But just this idea of, we are called to do certain things. And when we recognize what those things are and we start to move in those directions, the people around us that don't have that calling, that don't understand the full context of what we're experiencing, they might not understand. And I think that's something that every single person listening to this podcast can relate to. And so I guess my question for you is, how did you grapple with that? How did you stay on your path? What did that look like? What did that feel like?
Yeah, in all honesty, I can say, you know, it was my belief systems. It was, altering my perspective. And, the great Wayne Dyer says when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, which is like a metaphysical truth. Though what I really believe has supported me has been my writing practice, and in realizing that when we change our story, we change our life. And so, as I'm going through these hardships, as I'm going through my breakdowns and my challenges, I've always had my journal with me. And being able to just write down what I'm processing, being able to write down, the emotions that are arising within me, being able to write down the signs that I'm receiving from the universe or God, and, writing all this down. And then in the process of writing, taking that radical responsibility and changing my story. I am not a victim to this. Everything is happening for me. I trust and believe that I will continue to be guided and provided with everything that I need. Writing these things down, even to the point where there's like physical manifestations. At one point, I'm in a challenging situation, really, struggling to get some, coaching clients, right? Struggling to make content to acquire the coaching clients. And at one point, I just wrote down, I was like, I want to work with a holistic life advancement center. And then a couple weeks later, I get invited to this beautiful space in upstate New York, which is exactly that. And just the power of writing has truly, truly helped me get through my challenges by grounding me in the moment and helping me accept what is and embrace all that I know is to come, which is always for my greatest good.
If you're listening to this podcast, just rewind about 2 minutes and listen to that again. I could not resonate more with that. I mean, I wrote a blog, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. And actually, so this calendar year, 2022, I committed to writing a blog every single week, in addition to a newsletter every single week, in addition to my daily journals every single day. And writing has been such an important part of my life that I cannot imagine my life without it. And I've realized over time that I often look back and try to rewrite parts of my life that have happened. And I think there's power there, and there's it makes sense, right? It makes sense for us to go back and do that from time to time. However, the process of writing has allowed me to recognize in certain moments that I have the pen in my hand and I don't need to do something that's going to need to be rewritten down the road. I can just write it the way I want right now, but it takes that space, it takes that mindfulness. And I don't think I would have that awareness if it weren't for writing.
Mm-hmm. Aho, brother. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you and your wordplay, because the clarity in your communication, it's landing very, very nicely. And I can tell that the work that you've put in with your writing practice and your own contemplation has you here in a place where you're speaking with confidence, you're speaking with clarity, you're speaking with conviction. And again, yeah, for anyone listening, if that is something you desire, I highly encourage you and invite you to grab a pen, grab a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be the fanciest journal or the fanciest pen. Just get it out of your head, because there's something beautiful that happens when we can see on the outside what it is that's taking place inside. And if we want to get an insight, we have to go inside.
Oh man, you're too good, man. I appreciate your compliment, and I want to reflect that same compliment right back to you. Um, but let me ask you this: where did the poetry come from for you? It sounds like you, at a point in time, and maybe still, had a passion for creating films. And inherently, when I think of film, I think of stories. And when I think of poetry, I think of stories. When I think of writing, I think of stories. When I think of what you do, I think of stories. So where did the poetry come into play?
Yeah, growing up, ever since I was a kid, I was always a fan of storytelling, whether it was in movies, or even Blues Clues inspiring me to get my own handy dandy notebook. Though when it comes to poetry, honestly, I think it was hip hop. You know, it was just I grew up in, urban environments, and hip hop really, like Tupac and Biggie, and just hearing the way they like communicate and express what they stand for, communicate and express what they're experiencing and the emotional processes that they're going through in such a beautiful way that's like pulling you into their journey. And then for me, at one point in high school, I thought I was going to be a hip hop artist. I was going to go on tour with my best friend. We were going to be a duo, have this whole lifestyle, which I no longer desire in that same way. Um, and honestly, sometimes it just comes out of me, brother. It just comes out of me in ways where I'll be writing a poem and then I reread it and I start crying because I'm like, who wrote this? Because I needed to hear this. I needed to receive this right now. And it's beautiful too, because around the same time in 2020, when I was given this name, Brother B, I was staying at my dad's house, as I mentioned, and I noticed in the room that I was sleeping in, there was a box with some old photos and things like that. And, I felt drawn to it, right? I felt called to just go into this box and just look at what's inside. And I found this certificate from like 2006 that I was awarded for my poetry. Brother, when I saw this and held this in my hand, I immediately just like went into the bathroom and I just started bawling my eyes out because I just felt this connection with my inner child, and I felt as if like I've been neglecting this side of me for some time, and maybe not even neglecting it fully, as opposed to just not nurturing it in a way that I could, and yeah, man, poetry has been a part of my life ever since I was young. And I'm so grateful to see and receive from others reflection in how my words resonate with them and how my words inspire them. Because in all honesty, brother, I take no credit for the poetry that comes through me. Like I give all the credit to the great spirit, the great creator, the one that goes by many names. And I continue to give my gratitude and set the intention that my presence, my body, my voice is a vessel and is here to be used by this presence to really inspire and empower the unity within community and to help people, like I mentioned, remember who they are and remember why they're here.
When you open that box, you remembered who you are. And there's so much humility in the way that you express yourself. And that's very attractive because we live in a world, especially on social media, where there's not a lot of humility that's going around when people are looking for attention. And it's refreshing. It really is. And so I just want to thank you for that.
It is my pleasure. What is life without humility?
I don't know. You have an answer for that?
Well, it's funny because I literally was just having a call with a client of mine, and I was sharing with them about one of my ayahuasca experiences and how there was a moment that it got really intense for me. Where was the intensity coming from? I was simply receiving a lot of information, right? I was like connecting a lot of dots about my life and the world, and it was so intense that I just needed to go outside and get some fresh air. And when I went outside to get some fresh air, I was like, okay, this is helping. But like, I'm still like, oh, this is a lot for me. And the next thing you know, I get called and I'm moved to go lay down on the ground. And I was sharing how, like, oh, this is why life likes to humble us. Because in that moment, I was experiencing an intense situation only for me to go back to the earth and be humbled by the fact that no matter what's going on in this life, no matter how overwhelmed or how anxious I may feel, this earth is home. This earth is medicine. This earth is holding us along with everything we're holding on to. This earth is nourishing us, even though us as humans, we have a tendency to treat it disrespectfully, and it's like I feel like the reasons that we get humbled is so that we can remember. Is so that we can remember that, yes, we're human and we're fragile. We're sensitive, right? And from that humility, I feel like also comes a sense of empowerment, authentic empowerment, because it's like, okay, I know that my arm can break at any moment. And at the same time, I'm being held by some invisible force that I can't see, but I could feel it, and it's empowering me to show up as my authentic self in reverence to this life.
We've got to get this. We've got to get the transcript of this conversation. We're gonna publish. We're gonna publish a book of poetry tonight.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh man. So this whole conversation stemmed from what was the hardest thing that you've had to handle? And at the same time, I see a lot of value. I believe that you see a lot of value, and the people listening to this podcast see a lot of value in actively choosing to do hard things, to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. With that being said, what is the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, and why have you chosen to do that thing?
Mm. Going to the gym. That's always one that's like very easy to relate to, right? It's like, this is uncomfortable, but I know that I'm gonna get a quick dopamine rush at the end. Though I can say that for me, the hardest thing that I've voluntarily put myself through has really come down to simply expressing my truth, expressing my authentic self. You know, there was a point where a few years ago, I had come out to my family, not only about the fluidity of my sexuality, I was like, let me tell you everything. Let me tell you about all the drugs I've done. Let me tell you about how I prioritize my friends over my family. And it was hard because to then share that and see how my parents received it, like they were hurt. And oftentimes I found myself resistant to sharing my truth because I don't want to hurt anybody. Though at the same time, not speaking my truth, not sharing my truth ultimately leads to me creating my own suffering. And I'm not here to suffer. While pain is inevitable, suffering is something that we don't need to experience time and time again, and there's nothing greater than me speaking my truth. Because as I've shared earlier, I was led into multiple experiences where I'm being called to step into the unknown, to move across the country or to move out of the country with no idea of how things are going to work. It's in the moments that I'm expressing my truth, I'm being vulnerable, I'm being transparent. These are the moments where I'm building the deepest, most intimate relationships. These are the moments where I'm making space for someone to come and support me and help me in my situation. And again, it's bringing me peace. It's bringing me more peace. And yeah, man, there's just nothing more challenging than holding back our truth, holding back my truth. And that's definitely been the hardest thing that I've done in my life on purpose, just so I could experience some peace on this earth.
That is so relatable. I mean, what was the tipping point to go and talk to your parents about all of those things? Because I would imagine, like the rest of us, we've thought about having that conversation many times over, but maybe we haven't actually had it just yet. What was the tipping point that got you there?
Yeah, for me, it was coming to a point where I realized I'm being called to share my story, share my poetry, share my art online
Hmm.
and build the personal brand and inspire the masses and help people like embody their true authentic self. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then I'm like, oh wait, as soon as I turn the camera on, all of my insecurities start to arise, all of my fears start to arise. And it didn't sit right with me to go and share my story with the world without having these conversations with the people that mean most to me in my life.
Do you mind me asking how your family has digested that conversation since you've had it?
It definitely took them some time. Up until this very moment, there are certain things about my lifestyle choices that they may not agree with or they may not understand, though our ability to have transparent conversations has
Mm.
evolved. And that truly has deepened our relationship, especially with my grandfather. You know, Out of everyone in my family that I've like opened myself up to, his response was the most humbling, the most inspiring, and the most loving because I shared with him everything. And my grandfather's like my best friend, is my best friend. And after I shared everything with him, his response was his story.
Mm.
He didn't even acknowledge what I shared. He was just like, let me share with you what I've been through. And I was so blown away because he was sharing with me things that I never imagined my grandfather had gone through. And that brought us so closer together. And it's been like that, not just with my family members, but with my friends, with strangers who eventually become family. And and that's why I'm just a huge advocate for it, bro. Like, speak your truth, share your truth, live your truth. We're not here to be regretful, right? We have dreams, we have desires, and recognize that that which we desire comes with a sacrifice. That which we dream of creating for our lives comes with a responsibility. And especially if there's someone out there that wants to create content and put themselves out online, don't hide anything. It's not worth it because one way or another, it's either not going to sit well with you or it's not going to sit well with the people who eventually find out your truth.
I feel like usually in these conversations, I have things to add. I'm just listening, man. And that's some powerful stuff. I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you, brother. Like I said, I was really looking forward to this conversation, and I'm mostly looking forward to listening back to this conversation because, again, something that I found to be so beautiful from me speaking my truth and just whatever it is that wants to be expressed to come through is that there's always something in it for me to listen to.
That's a great message as well. I think oftentimes I'll look back at my journals, and similar to your experience that you shared earlier, about looking back on your writing, your poetry, I feel like these lessons were there for me to learn the whole time, but sometimes it takes time and space for me to be removed from them to learn the lesson from myself. And I rarely listen back to my own podcast, actually, almost never, which is interesting. And this one will be one that I listen back to in its entirety for sure. And we're not done yet. I want to tailor this next question to you a little bit. So I will, in a normal podcast, ask people, what does the word endurance mean to you? And I still want to hear your answer to that. I would also add, what does the word adventure mean to you? So, two words, and you can take them as you please.
Hmm. Well, we'll start with endurance, right? Because endurance is something that we want to tap into, right? Endurance is that infinite supply of energy that supports us in overcoming all odds, all challenges, right? When it comes to adventure, we need a little bit of endurance because when we go off on an adventure, especially on an adventure we've never gone on before, where life is going to throw at us some curveballs, right? Like adventure is feeling alive in what you're doing, where you're going, and how you're being. And sometimes that's not always easy. Like, especially, for myself, I feel called to show up in this lifetime, in this world as a leader. And that requires me to show up a certain way. That requires me to show up with integrity. That requires me to show up with confidence, with clarity of why I'm even showing up in this way. And there are times where I get burnt out. especially with all the content that I think needs to be created, and endurance is something that supports me in getting through that. Endurance is whenever I forget why I'm doing this, endurance is there to help me remember why I'm doing this. Endurance is there to help me remember, oh, this earth has everything that I need to optimize my body, right? That endurance is there to help me connect to the source of why I'm even here, of why we're all here for these adventures, and all the adventures I've gone on, they've been high, they've been low. But what I know is that they've all been a calling from my soul. And I can't live with any regrets knowing that I've answered my soul's calling.
I want to share a quote and then I'm going to ask a follow up question. So the quote is from Randy Komisar, who said, "And then there is the most dangerous risk of all, the risk of spending your life not doing what you want on the bet that you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later." And you've been using the word calling throughout this conversation. When did you realize that what you were feeling inside was a calling? And how would you help somebody else out there understand what a calling might feel like for them? Because I think we all could relate to the concept of a calling, but might have trouble actually recognizing that in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the first thing that comes to mind is it requires one to be able to discern what are my egoic desires versus what are my truest desires, and asking ourselves, why do I want this? Why am I pursuing this? And for me, it was through my journaling and looking back. And I'm like, I keep talking about and writing about how I want this for my life. There must be something to that, right? Or I keep receiving this feeling or like this little nudge to put that habit down or to, reach out to this person and have that tough conversation. It's very subtle, right? And having a meditation practice helps because it helps me just observe what's going on in the mind and then filter it through the heart. And for anyone out there that's like, I don't know if this is like my ego desire or if this is my soul's desire. My invitation for you is to pause, turn within, listen, and begin again. Simple. Because regardless of what actions we take, I don't believe that there's any wrong that we can do on this planet, right? And whatever actions we get, it's like we gain clarity through taking action. I remember you saying that in one of your recent podcasts. And it's so true, where it's like, okay, I feel like I'm being called to like go in this direction. Though I'm not certain. Maybe asking for a sign could be helpful because the universe will respond. And I received actually a little trick from one of my teachers, Michael Bernard Beckwith. This was when I was homeless in California in 2019, and I'm like, I don't know if I need to go back home or if I need to stay here in California. And he was like, listen, before you go to bed or at any moment, just ask the Great Spirit for a very specific sign. And as I've been on my own spiritual journey, I've been building a relationship with the spirit of the fox. And so, what I've gotten in the habit of doing is when I'm at a crossroads and I need to discern my egoic desires from my soul's desires, I'll ask. I'll be like, okay, if I'm meant to do A, show me a fox on my path. If I'm meant to do B, show me a turtle. And then I surrender. I don't go out looking for the sign. If I do, I already have my answer. Though most of the time, I simply surrender, and then life will show me a fox on the back of a car or on someone's hat or on my IG feed, or I'll see something on a billboard sign that'll like say exactly what it is that I need guidance on. It's just, if you really want that clarity, it's true when they say, ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, I don't think enough people ask. They don't ask themselves, they don't ask others, they don't ask the universe. They don't ask. And, the signs I can relate to. I shared on a previous podcast episode after my grandfather passed away, finding pennies all over the place. After my grandfather's sister told me that every penny was from him. And to the calling front, when you're going to a restaurant and you're trying to decide, maybe should we go here or should we go there? And you say, let's flip a coin. You flip a coin and you decide to go here, but in your gut you go, ah, man, I really wanted to go there. And I feel like that for me is probably one of the most relatable examples of what a calling might feel like. And like you said, if you're going out looking for that sign, then you probably have your answer. And but you don't know until you ask.
Yeah, two things came up. One, the grandfather situation, because literally it was years after my grandfather passed away. This was the first time I ever asked for a sign and got it. And I was driving home one day from work late at night. A song comes on, and as I'm listening to it, I feel the presence of my grandfather in the car with me. It feels like he's sitting right next to me. And the feeling is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I'm like, okay, I'm either really tired right now and I'm like kind of going crazy, or you're really here with me right now. And so I simply, in my own mind, spoke to him and be like, okay, hey, if you're here with me right now, I need you to give me a sign. And I had this angel pennant, metal pennant, hanging on my car that was like spinning around. On one side, it was flat metal, the other side, a beautifully carved angel. And I'm like, okay, if you're really here with me right now, I want you to stop this angel from moving and I want it to look at me directly. And I took a moment, I paused after I asked. And when I looked up, it was as if time had stopped. That angel was not moving, it was staring at me. And then just a wave of tears flooded down my face. And I knew nothing was more real in that moment than the sign that I just received, than the sign that I just asked for. And ever since then, it's like, okay, I'm going to continue to ask. And you mentioning, like, yeah, not many people ask. Not many people ask the question, who am I? Not many people ask the question, what am I really here for? Oftentimes we ask ourselves, man, why can't I just ever be consistent? Man, why can't I just ever follow through on what I say I'm going to do? Here's the thing, when we ask disempowering questions, the mind is going to give a very disempowering answer. So as we walk this path of being more aware of asking questions, let's be extra mindful about asking questions that are going to empower us rather than asking, man, why am I such a screw up? How about we ask, what was I meant to learn from every choice that I ever made in my life that led me here now? Two different questions, two different answers. And I'm pretty sure most of the listeners want to live a life feeling empowered.
Once again, I've got nothing, man. That couldn't be more true. That could not be more true. And in the world of physical therapy, where we are focused so much on weakness and limited range of motion and impairment, right? One of the problems I had with the profession is how much emphasis we placed on what was wrong, on the problem, on how frail somebody was, rather than getting stronger, making improvements, making progress, what was going well, rather than what wasn't going well. And our words, our questions, they are beyond powerful. And you grow up hearing phrases like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And the truth is, words can do a lot of damage. And if used intentionally, words can be incredibly empowering. And I think that's what you're getting at.
100%. Like the power of affirmations, the power of prayer and gratitude, from my experience, has truly helped me manifest the life of my wildest dreams.
And you're just getting started.
We are just getting started, brother.
There we go. There we go. Now, Brother B, as we land this plane, I've got one final question for you. This one is just my favorite. I don't have any other way of saying that. It's just my favorite because there are, without a doubt, people listening to this podcast who are in a tough spot, don't know where to go, are unsure of what to do, maybe are feeling down, maybe even hopeless. And you have this opportunity, in addition to the conversation we've had, to just speak for a moment or two directly to that person on the other end of the podcast who's struggling. What would you say to them?
Mm. Well, what wants to come through is in the form of a poem. And for anyone that is feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or lost, I say to you, expect the unexpected. Life has a funny way of throwing us off balance, as if it wants us to remember that we have what it takes to realign our focus towards our purpose. It is when we dig deep beneath the surface that we find exactly where our worth is, hidden in the dark, pressured by the earth. As we break down, we break through everything the pain is worth. And so while we look around at our world, see and feel all of the hurt, know that there is someone out there planting a seed for our future deep into the dirt. And since we're still here, alive and well, we might as well grab some gloves and get to work, because we're clearly given another chance to co-create heaven on earth.
Man. Uh, you are amazing. You're amazing, man. And I'm so grateful for that poem, that message, your story, this conversation, the energy that you bring to the world every single day from Peru, emanating through the internet to everybody who comes in contact with you. We're all better off for it. So, Brother B, thank you for this. If something in here resonated with the people, and I know it did, and they want to follow along, they want to connect, they want to learn more about you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, man. I mean, for anyone that wants to stay connected, you can check me out at iambrotherb.com. You can slide into my DMs with any questions, anything you're processing on Instagram at iambrotherb. And I also go live every Sunday on this meditation platform known as Insight Timer. And we got a beautiful community on there. And yeah, I'm here. I'm here to receive you in any way, shape, or form. As always, remember, we are family.
Brother B, thank you so much. I am very, very much looking forward to listening to this conversation back, maybe more than once.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you, man.
Likewise, brother, sending you all the love as you continue to share this with the people.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.